Welcome back to the opening of Parliament, the 7th Administration. My name is Faraz Patel. Jazakallah so much for staying with us. We've seen in the Government of National Unity many various parties joining in creating their idea of where they would like to be within the various portfolio committees. Joining me now, I'd like to welcome a member of the Government of National Unity. It's Advocate Shameemah Dollie, who is part, of course, of Jama-ah, and she serves as a member of Parliament for them. Advocate, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for joining us here.
Wa alaikum salam to you and to all the listeners. Alhamdulillah, I'm grateful to be here and very humbled.
No, it's absolutely listeners and viewers.
And viewers,
yes,
of course.
Advocate, let's start off, of course, Government of National Unity. Jama-ah is in it. When I spoke to Mr. Hendricks, of course, the negotiations were still there. How's it been so far as a member of this Government of National Unity?
Very interesting, because obviously we've got the Progressive Party, who's more the opposition parties, and then you've got the Government of National Unity. Well, we are at baby steps, so there's a lot of things that we still have to learn in the Government of National Unity. But stepping in, my interest is simply, I'm not interested in anything other than to serve our people. That's bottom line. All I'm interested in is that, you know, we've seen so much challenges, we're seeing so much difficulties, and we see so much oppression amongst our people in South Africa. And it is by time that people comes together, looks at the different manifestos, takes what is of similarity in every manifesto, and put the people of South Africa first. My interest is simple, it is pure, and I've always had the heart for all our people, not just in South Africa, but international as well. My job is clear. It is to order to uplift, empower and improve the circumstances of our people, and all the other drama that is surrounding us with regard to whether it be the Government of National Unity, whether it be the opposition. I don't get involved in that type of drama. My focus is clear.
Advocate, we were speaking of you looking at three different sort of portfolios that you want to be involved in. Let's start off with the first one. Justice. Of course, we've got a clean sort of sweep, and I mean it not in a literal way, but in a figurative way. The ability for the prosecutions. I mean, this is something that's close to your heart, given that you're an advocate. The strengthening of the MPA and the Hawks. There's no room for error now, isn't there? Especially in terms of giving them the power to make these prosecutions, especially when it comes to that State Capture Commission report, which is still hanging in the air.
Having been part of the National Prosecuting Authority, having been part of the Department of Justice as a family advocate as well, I come from a time where we prosecuted without fear or favor. And that is the oath that prosecutors take. And I think that without fear or favor, they need to take their power back and prosecute these criminals. But I do believe that our problem lies in the fact that our justice system, whether it be the NPA or the justice system as a whole, or many other departments and businesses as well, and organizations, corruption has filtered through. I witnessed first-hand corruption in the department between 2014 and 2015, and that is why I resigned from the Department of Justice, because I could not form part of an institution of that nature. So firstly, with regard to prosecution, provide them with the resources, including our police and investigating officers, provide them with the budget and the resources to do their work effectively. Provide them there with the skills and the training that they require in order to do their job. This is vital. Also, the amount of resources is so lacking if you go into these departments. How are you effectively going to do your job if you are not provided with the resources required in order to ensure proper investigations, prosecutions? Your matters, more often than not, has already failed at the crime scene. So these are things we need to take to heart. We need to go into these different courts. We need to go into the police stations. We need to remove the corruption that has filtered in. It's a tough job because it's always been there, but it has been allowed to grow and fester.
Shameemah, the other portfolio you're looking at, of course, international relations. Now, here's a very difficult scenario, because obviously some of the members within the Government of National Unity have a different stance on what is currently happening in Palestine and the genocide there. There's some parties that, of course, have a very similar view. How's that going to work? Because even though we've got Ronald Lamola as the International Relations Minister, there is a trick in terms of policy. How does that work? How do you get everyone in the government of national unity to say, well, there's one plan that we're going to stick to?
That has always been a challenge, whether we had the government of national unity or not. I don't know if our people's eyes was closed to the fact, but I think my eyes has always been open to the political sphere. And the reality is, I'm going to say it as it is, many used Palestine for votes. So where is everybody now after the elections? Where are our marches, our pickets and our fire? Because the genocide hasn't stopped. And then the other aspect is, one of the matters that I dealt with in my maiden speech was the fact of a two-state solution. How can we support a two-state solution? In South Africa, we are always saying we want our land back. We are fighting for return of our land. But how can we, as South Africans, even think about a two-state solution? At what point did we allow a thief and a murderer, entities committing genocide, and supporting a two-state solution? So you're okay with Palestine giving up part of their land and saying, let's do a two-state solution here? What would you say about the two-state solution right here in South Africa?
But advocate, that comes the challenge, because this is where I need to ask. I mean, you being part of the government of national unity, that you've got parties. I mean, you know full well who those parties are, who are taking, I suppose, a different stance on things. They're calling for that very same two-state solution. Even the ANC is calling for, in many times, it said for the two-state solution, even though you had, Minister Naledi Pandor was a former international relations minister, speaking, I suppose, a different tone, but they had to stick to the policy of the ANC, which was a two-state solution. Within this government of national unity, that's going to be the gripe, isn't it?
Absolutely. And where does it start? It starts with education. You have to educate people on the difference between a two-state solution and the history of where the two-state solution came from, and the movement that needs to be done in terms of policy towards a one-state solution. Now, as the viewers might know, I'm very involved with Palestine. I have visited 3 times. I have many people that I consult with in the area of Gaza and in Palestine, and they are not in favor of a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, and like South Africa, they would like to make the rules, the regulations, the policies and laws of their own country without the interference of outside governments. And I do think, as South Africa, we had that opportunity. Why should we deny the opportunity to the Palestinians?
Shameemah, advocate, I want to touch on sports, arts and culture. That's another one that you are looking at. There's a new minister, Gaten McKenzie. He's come out, the super fans, the talk of the super fans and their exposure, as you would put it. What is your take on that? And when we look at this department, it's always been the sort of stepchild department within. Only when the Springboks win a World Cup, or the Proteas do well, or Bafana do well, or athletes do well, is it sort of like brought into the limelight. How does this department remain relevant and important within South Africa?
Sports, arts and culture has been now united into one. Let's take sports, for example. Let's take away the Proteas and everybody else. My interest in sports is that our sister portfolios, like the Department of Social Development, as well as education, as well as sports, needs to come together. I'm looking at sports and arts at schools, where in our most vulnerable areas, in our most oppressed areas, that sports infrastructure be improved, that young people be provided coaches on both school and community level to the same standard and quality as per your private schools. To be honest, I'm exhausted that our young people at the most vulnerable schools are not getting the opportunities like your Sacks and your Bishops, etc. Because more than often, your Proteas and your Springboks are coming from certain schools. So I would love to see a child from the townships, in the rural areas, in the villages, becoming your Springbok and your Protea, and being given those opportunities on their school grounds and levels, and communities being able to access these sporting facilities, for example,
but how do you change
schools.
that, advocate? Because here's my thing. Siya Kolisi would not have been Siya Kolisi if he didn't go to a private school. Your cricketing stars wouldn't have been, I mean, the likes of your Hashim Amlas or your Kagiso Rabadas wouldn't have done that if you didn't go to a private school. So how do you change that mentality? Look at what happened with Spain. They won the European Championships, but they did that by getting a 16-year-old Lamine Yamal. So how does South Africa change that culture? Because it starts with a cultural change, doesn't it?
It starts with, but there is a will. What we have noted in our portfolio already is that there is a will for this change. There is a desire for this change. And, you're not going to be able to change it overnight. But if you start off in certain areas, one school at a time, you're going to be able to effect that change. I've witnessed the ability to make a change, not in a township school, but in our community cricket. I've also witnessed the ability to make that change at one of the schools in the Rondebosch area, which is not the Model C school. And I've noticed the improvement of these young people. So it's going to be a matter of a desire and a want to make the change. After 30 years of democracy, to not have removed those barriers in sports yet is very concerning.
Advocate, shukran so much for joining us, and all the best ahead of your work within the Government of National Unity. Much appreciated. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for having me at Hilaal TV.
Absolute pleasure. That's Advocate Shameemah Dollie. She's a member of the Jama-ah party and a member of Parliament, and of course she will be looking to be involved in 3 different portfolios: justice, international relations, sports, arts and culture. Do stay tuned to Hilaal TV as we bring you more from the opening of Parliament, the 7th administration.